hi. I was trying to unmute myself and then it was like, no, you can't. And then it was like, you want to unmute yourself? I'm like, yes, I do. Hi, my name is Iris Hill. I am an exploring storyteller with Storytellers and Scout Ants. And I'm still catching my breath from Fat Man Scoop and Timberland dropping it like it's hot. Thank you, Jordan, for that amazing, like energetic intro. I know it's for Ramil, but I felt like it was knocking on my door. And y'all, I love nature. It is the air I breathe. It is my everything. So much so that I made some slides and we're gonna try this because this is my first time doing this. Where did you go? Where are you hiding? You're back here. So I'm gonna screen share. Bloop, there we go. And yes, share that. Blah, blah, blah. So much so that, no. I am a biophiliac. And it's not a word, so I pinned that. And if it actually was a word in the dictionary, this would be me right here. It would be my face with my mouth wide open. Everybody and their mom wants to call me now, like, go away. And cancel. With the definition of a biophiliac, person obsessed with nature who can't get enough. When said person is out in nature, their mouth hangs open from uncontrollable excitement. And that is me. Anywhere, doing anything, I am mouth wide open. Now, you might be asking how it all began. And to be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea. I get it honestly, and Mother Nature captured me before I had a chance to object. And from there, the rabbit hole just got deep, and I was just absolutely in love. Anything and everything that I could do outdoors, I would do it. I was blessed growing up on a farm, and I was blessed with a mother who encouraged all of my nature craziness. Our laundry room became a nursery for orphan piglets and calves and fawns. Our kitchen became a wayward station for wild animals. My crazy cousin would catch raccoons and stuff like that, and he would bring them and let me see them. So that's how it kind of got started. And it's developed into the deepest, wildest, most enjoyable love affair that I have ever been a part of, the longest one. And maybe that's my exes know that I'm really in love with Mother Nature and they can't compete. So I want to ask you guys a question in the chat, and I want you to respond. Have you ever been deeply, fully, and foolishly in love? And number two, what did you do when you were in love? And I don't know how to get back to the chat. There we go. Yes, we've all been in love. You got married. It was blinding. Like, what would you do? Like, what links did you go to be with that person that you love? You can't get enough. You spend all your time with that person. Exactly. And that is what I do. I I spend all my time, and I am foolishly in love with nature to the points that I go through and to unimaginative, questionable links at times to be with her. Kelly mentioned that mosquitoes. I have a love-hate with mosquitoes and humidity. And finally, I went to Costa Rica and I finally had the opportunity to one-up them. Like, it culminated in the rainforest of Costa Rica with the bats of Costa Rica coming to my aid and actually swooping down and eating a mosquito right in front of my eyes. And I was like, yes, thank you, Mother Nature. You're awesome. One for me, like one versus a million. I mean, I stay up late, and anybody that knows me knows that I am not a night person. Like, sun goes down, I go to sleep. Just a myriad of things that I do in order to connect with nature. Let's see, where are my slides? This year I have become obsessed with learning to handle snakes. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a field trip to Texas and learn how to wrangle snakes, because why be afraid? And this is a rattlesnake that I wrangled. I will climb extremely high mountains just to see what's at the top and get a better view. I will snow camp in negative 18-degree weather and get frostbite, if that's a thing, on your bang, to the point of maybe losing it. And I will lose my favorite boot. If you can see that, like the sole of my boot disappeared and came apart snow trekking. But I do it because I love her, and just to have a deeper relationship and a deeper knowledge with her. And that's me in Costa Rica fighting the mosquitoes just for the opportunity to possibly see a wild coati, which I saw on my last day. So my next question for you guys is, after you found your true love, what did you want to do? Like, what was the thing that you wanted to do? I found her, him, and now what? What was like, what did you want to do? If you can answer in the chat. Have babies. Yes, I have thousands of nature babies. Travel. You want to travel with them. Snuggles and adventure. Yes, I love it. Be together forever. Like me and Mother Nature, we're not going anywhere. Enjoy each other's company at all things. Show them off to everyone. Yes, that is what I wanted to do. As a kid, I wanted to show my true love to everybody. I wanted them to experience the same type of love. And I would introduce and invite my friends and family willingly on my adventures, starting with my brother, dragging him across our farm to explore the fields and build tree houses, my cousins and my grandmother's house in North Carolina, hiking up her hill to the point there was no grass left. And then my poor best friend, my most loyal person, I tortured her and I coerced her. And I have to share my screen again so you guys can see this lovely lady who has been with me through everything in nature. This is her Welch's wasted after an adventure with us. And I put her through the ringer, from catching mice to perfecting my goat mating call, to her final straw was going camping with me. And I convinced her to go camping with me in our backyard. And if my backyard was not your typical backyard, it was a forest. So I was like, let's go camping. And she was like, okay. But in the middle of the night, she was like, it's freezing cold and I'm out of here. And she abandoned me. And at that point, something came to mind. And not at that point, but it was later in life that I realized something really, really valuable. And even though that we may love something, let me stop sharing that and go back. This is fun. I have another question for you all. What do your friends and family tell you after being the third wheel for a while in your love relationship? After you've like, hey, this is my boo and da 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 da, and I love them so much and I want you to meet it. We get it. Yes, we get it. Exactly. Anything else? They tell you how they really and truly feel. And it wasn't until I was an adult that she was like, I don't like nature the way that you do. I don't even like eating outside. I think it's tacky. And I was like, what? You don't? But then it clicked to me, like, the world is so vast and we have so many different personalities that the way I love nature isn't going to be the way that everyone loves nature. And so from there, I started to think, well, my background is in conservation biology. If I'm passionate and I want to protect this world and, make it better and build stewards, then how am I going to do that? Because just dragging people out to do what I want to do, or just, saying you should recycle and, climate change is real and all of this stuff, if there's no connection, if there's no love, if there's no passion, then it just goes in one ear and goes out the other. And so I had an idea. It's like, you have to meet people where they are and help them form a connection in their own way. And my experience in nature, I know that Mother Nature is so vast, and she's so has so many different variables. There's something for everyone. So whether you're a poet and you just go and you write your poetry outside, my best friend, the person who hates eating outside, she loves flowers and she loves photographing flowers. So now when she comes and visits me, I take her to the Getty Museum to see the garden, or the Getty Villa, and I introduce her in that way. So in making that connection is something she's passionate about, she want to protect it. Now, she may not want to go out and protect the clouded leopards of Thailand, but she may make a garden that pollinators will come and be able to pollinate, and it's those things that connection is. That is what I want to do with storytellers and Scout Ants, and that is kind of how it was birthed. And so through Storytellers and Scout Ants, we tell wildly curious stories from around the world to encourage a love and passion for nature, and to help individuals find their home in nature, because I truly believe that everybody is a biophiliac, even if it's just something small. We all have and desire to have a connection with nature. We just may not know how to find it. And that is what Storytellers and Scout Ants does. And that is my objective. And so with all of that said, had a lot of time just not to be out in nature this year. And so working with the lovely Jordan, dance lady extraordinaire, we have launched our first program, and it's called Postcards and Audio Adventures with Professor Curiosity. And let me show you our first postcard, which I am really excited about. And it's just a way for kids to connect with nature and find, so here's our first postcard. A bear drank my dishwater and ran away with a spoon. And it's just to spark curiosity in children, and hear wildly curious stories from around the world, and just help them to find their connection with nature. And I believe that's all that I have. I hope that you've learned something. I hope that I've sparked your curiosity. And thank you for allowing me to share my love and passion for nature with you.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Iris. I really, really appreciate you sharing about your life's work and your passion, and helping us to understand that being a biophiliac doesn't necessarily mean that we have to ascribe to one idea. It can be our own, entirely of our own making. So thank you so much. So we'll move on to our next speaker, and we will hold some Q&A. So be sure to hold on to your questions for Iris if something is just burning your brain and you have to ask her. We will jump into that after our next speaker. So a little intro about our next speaker. His mission is to dismantle the boundaries between people and the natural world through his work as an artist. With an extremely diverse portfolio ranging from murals and paintings to installations, just to name a few, our speaker is the creative director of Pangea Seed Foundation. Oh, I didn't pronounce that word right. Here to talk about biophilia, let's welcome Aaron Glasson.
Okay. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
We got you.
Oh, good. Okay, sweet. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ramel, for the invite, and Creative Mornings for having me. I've known about Creative Mornings for a long time, so it's a real honor to be here and to be speaking. To be honest, I did not know what biophilia was either before the invite to this talk. But upon researching it, I definitely realized, like Iris said, that I too am a biophiliac. And what was really fascinating for me was kind of thinking about, why am I a biophiliac? And I know I'm stating the obvious right now and saying this, but it definitely is traced back to my childhood as well. I grew up in New Zealand, and one thing about New Zealand is no matter where you are, you're kind of never far from wild places. And my parents were very gave me a lot of autonomy as a kid. They let me and my little brother kind of like roam across farmland and into forest, and I kind of spent all day, any chance I had, playing in forests and building huts and making weapons and making costumes and kind of creating worlds. And I just kind of haven't stopped doing that. I mean, I think the reason that I'm an artist is because I just didn't stop doing all those things that I loved to do out in nature as a child. It's just been the continuous thing I've done, and therefore I'm an artist now, which is cool. So those kind of experiences as a kid really instilled in me this kind of like omnipresent longing for connection to the natural world, like physically, mentally, spiritually. And then I guess my artwork now is twofold. As part on a selfish level, it operates to give me that connection, but then it also, the overarching theme of everything that I do, though it is quite diverse, is how do I foster through my work a connection between human beings, and also how do I foster a connection between human beings and the natural world. So I'll just get this slideshow started here. Oh, let me see. Oh no, you guys can always see my crazy desktop. Okay. Is that first slide up? Cool. Yeah, so like I was saying, I mean, the things that I was doing as a kid, I'm still kind of doing now. I went to art school, and I remember being in my first year of art school and thinking, am I doing the right thing? Should I be studying conservation and ecology? And then I kind of realized pretty quickly that I could use my work to aid conservation efforts potentially, and to work with conservation efforts. And I could, being an artist didn't mean that I had to be separate from the natural world. So a lot of my work again is kind of like speaking to that. So I've kind of been, it's been 20 years since I started art school. So I'm just going to I've chosen some projects from the last 10 years. They're by no means in chronological order, but they all kind of speak to the subject of biophilia and my own biophilia. This was a project that I collaborated with a friend, Jenny Wellwert, who's a fashion designer. We were both living in Sri Lanka at the time, and I've been involved with ocean conservation for a long, long time, and she had this interest in it, and she had kind of figured out that pre the industrialization of beef and meat in the leather industry, a lot of leather from around the world was made out of alternative things. So being interested in waste products, her and I, she figured out that you could make leather from fish. So she went to tuna canneries in Sri Lanka and went into their garbage bins essentially, and found out like these things were full of all these tuna fish skins. So taking this waste product, these tuna fish skins, she taught local unemployed women how to tan this leather, and then turned it into these kind of high fashion products. So this is some shoes that we made with Colgi, sneakers, like laptop cases, wallets, all kind of things. And my role was, how do we turn these products not only into functional, like utilitarian items, but also educational things? So each product had illustrations that I made inside of it, printed, and little pamphlets. And these objects had a story, which told the story of the depletion of resources, and even the depletions of tuna, like the thing that the object was made of. So you'd get this kind of item, but you also learn about overfishing and ocean pollution, all these dire problems that are facing our oceans. This is another project that Jenny and I did. This is actually a shark's liver. So again, a kind of waste product. I don't know if anyone knows much about this, but sharks are killed like crazy these days for their fins. They generally take the fins and then throw the sharks away. This was kind of a guinea pig, and we never made more than one, but it was just a kind of conceptual idea. As we took this shark's liver and we stretched it over this, this kind of framework. It got attacked by maggots, which we didn't expect, but we turned it into a lamp. So this is a shark liver lamp. And then I made this bowl, which is to replicate the bowl that you eat shark fin soup from. So moving along, I have been creative director of Pangea Seed for the last 10 years. I've kind of stepped away from it in the last year or so to pursue my own kind of artistic and design endeavors. But basically Pangea Seed, long story short, was an organization started by my friend Trey Packard. And the basic idea is, how do you make ocean conservation cool? Like a lot of conservation efforts, I think the face of them is kind of outdated. So the idea with Pangea Seed was like, how do we make it cool and appealing to kids? The answer is like good art and good design. So through art and design, we hope to connect with people and teach them about ocean conservation. We do a lot of things from like community outreach to educational things for teachers, but a big part of it is murals and street art. So we started a program called Seawalls Murals for Oceans. Through this program, we've painted around 400 murals around the world, each mural specifically addressing a relevant ocean or water problem to that area. That's me painting a mural in New Zealand for this program. This is another collaboration that I did with an artist called Jason Botkin in Austin, Texas. And for example, this depicts a local girl with an endangered local water bird. So like I said, every mural is like respective to its local environment, and a big part of it is collaboration. A lot of my work is collaborative, which kind of, going back to the theme of my work, helps me connect with people, like not only through the work itself, but in the making of the work. This is just a map of our seawalls. You can go to seawalls, I think it's seawalls.org, and you can kind of see all the murals are documented on there. They talk about what they're about, and you can kind of virtually go and visit them. This is for Seawalls project. This is a mural that I did on the I can never say this correctly, Querétaro Museum of Science, and this is talking about Indigenous water rights. But this was actually a collaboration with 10 other artists, and we spent 1 month painting this entire dome, which is, I'm not sure you can tell from the photo, but the thing is ginormous, which was a really cool collaborative project. And each mural is the artist's own individual take on water conservation. This is a collaboration with my good friend Celeste Byers it's in Cancun, Mexico from 2017. Again, connecting with communities. This was a woman who lived in this building, and we depicted her on the outside of her building with a saber-toothed tiger. I could go into all that, but it's a long story. A lot of my work, this work included, is kind of confusing, I think, a little bit, and I try to harness that confusion. I think that confusion kind of leads to awe, and awe kind of leads to wonder, and that wonder kind of breeds appreciation, and especially in regards to nature. If you experience awe and wonder of nature, then it's kind of fosters some kind of like feeling of connection and appreciation, and ultimately respect for it. Another collaboration with a friend of mine, Ayik. He's from the Ukraine. This is in Ojai, and we painted this strictly after the Ojai fires, and it kind of speaks to the regeneration of the forest there in a confusing way. I also have a fine art painting practice. This is an oil painting. It's called Fire and Flood and the Innocence in Between, and it kind of depicts a flood coming in from the left-hand side, a fire coming in from the right. And I was kind of thinking about this idea of who's innocent amongst all these environmental catastrophes. So it depicts kind of animals, and what I see is could be interpreted as maybe indigenous peoples, kind of stuck in between these like impending environmental disasters. This was a poster that I made to raise money for Standing Rock. I'm sure you all remember what happened there a few years ago, which was not only a fight for Indigenous lands, but also a fight to save their river and their water. So I kind of just made this poster and then sold it as a fundraiser and then donated the money to the cause. You can see the land protectors on the left, and then there's the this guy on the right is the CEO of the oil company, and then the police, and etc. etc. This is part of a series of work that I worked on last year at the Rural American Artist Residency out in Utah. I've included this stuff because it was a really huge turning point in my work for me. Having worked for most of my art career with like a lot of bought materials, I went to this artist residency with nothing whatsoever and just decided to go there and make work with whatever I could find. So from an ecological standpoint, I was realizing that a lot of my work, I was using like acrylic paint, which is a petroleum product. I was buying these canvases, which are made of cotton, and cotton is actually terrible for the environment. So I just wanted to make things with found object. So I went there and I started just experimenting and trying to retrain my brain to recognize like beauty in the mundane and beauty in things that people wouldn't necessarily consider beautiful, and taking them out of context and making them beautiful through my art practice. So this is a series of work from my residency there, and it's just basically things from a demolished and abandoned building that I was finding and going out and picking up rocks. That concrete thing a friend and I made, Prescott McCarthy. And it really has sent me in a different direction as far as my work goes. Because again, these are just scraps of wood and bricks and carved into rocks, and just looking at a different way of making work. It's essentially bricolage, which is a French word for using whatever comes to hand. This also made me think about painting differently. I found some scraps of fabric and I found some mud in a cave and started painting with the mud on the fabric that I found. And it kind of sent me in this new direction in regards to my painting. So again, I was like, I want to make painting that's like biodegradable. I don't want to create toxic, I don't want to be speaking about ecology and nature in my work, but creating toxic pieces of artwork that will never biodegrade. So I started this kind of work that is, biodegradable. So this is basically organic cotton canvas, which is the most friendly way to use cotton. I stretch it over reclaimed wood stretcher bars and then paint with egg tempera, which is just pigment, vinegar, and egg whites. I've even gone to the lengths of going out into nature now and finding these pigments, like crushing them on my own and creating my own paints. So that's me and my friend Johnny Alexander out looking for pigments. And there's actually pigments everywhere. You can make pigments from a lot of things you can find even in your like local park. So that's where my work is going. So this is a painting made with these pigments. It's just a series of these works. And this is also an exploration into abstraction for me. I have been a figurative painter my whole life, meaning I paint, you know, like things based on reality. And now I'm trying to train my brain to paint abstract. And I think a lot of these forms are inherently coming from my experiences in nature as well. This is the start of a project that I did in Hawaii last year. I was invited to an artist residency and exhibition at the East Hawaii Museum of Contemporary Art. And there was a residency program in which I had 2 weeks to create a body of work prior to the exhibition. So I partnered with Habitat for Humanity. If you're not familiar, they're a group that takes like old bits of houses and things people are throwing away, and you can go to Habitat for Humanity and purchase it for really, really cheap. So they put me in touch. I got to the island and they were like, okay, so this man has just passed away. His name's Gary, and he spent his whole life collecting things. He was an absolute hoarder, and he's just passed away. His daughter, who's in this photograph here, says that you can come by and take whatever you want to build your art installation, essentially. So he was a hoarder, and he was also a propagator of plants. So his property was covered in just items, like things, essentially like garbage, as some people would think, and plants, like rare plants from all around the world. So I was given full access to his property, and I just spent like days sorting through a lifetime of hoarding and collecting things. And then I made, and this is my friend Johnny with one of his rare plants. I made inside of the gallery, inside of the museum, I made an homage to this man. And the piece is called A Matter of Time, collaboration with a man that I never met. And it's basically a reshaping of Gary's things into these forms. And it's this kind of circular temple to him, if you will. And because this museum is in his hometown, his friends came, and it was this like very interesting experience to connect with all his friends. And I never met this guy, but he has stories about him, and I kind of used his plants in the installation. You can kind of see like his little Buddha statue and all these things. And it was really trippy because in going through his things, I had so much in common with this person. And I built this kind of connection with someone that, yeah, again, that I never met. This is another part of that project. This is also Gary's wood. So Gary had these piles and piles of wood, and I collaborated with an artist from Detroit who was also part of the exhibition called Alan Rutt. And in the park outside of the museum, we constructed this temporary installation, kind of just 2 days. We cut all the stuff out of wood, not knowing what would happen. We installed it in the park, and it kind of became this temporary playground. Like kids would come there, and teachers would bring their school classes there, and they'd climb all over it. Miraculously, it didn't fall over. But that was a really amazing experience, and it really has instilled in me this feeling of like, I need to make more playgrounds, because kids connect on these things, you know, and they like have a great time outside, and they're running around. And this time when kids are on their screens all the time, I really see so much worth in like creating spaces for which kids can play. This is another part of my art practice. This was a collaboration with my friend Celeste Byers. This was from some years ago. I think this is 2016. This is called the Infinigon. This is made from repurposed wood. And it's basically this kind of experiential space. We have to crawl through a tiny opening to get into the space. The inside is full of infinity mirrors, which is where you have a mirror reflecting a mirror, gives the illusion of infinity. And I love these spaces because they're so small and intimate that strangers will be forced to squeeze through this little gap, which kind of like humbles them, and they're suddenly in the space with strangers, and you have to speak to them because you're kind of forced into this little space. So they're kind of like connection spaces, is how I see them. This is also with Celeste Byers. This is in Mexico for a music festival. It's kind of a floating connection cube space thing. This is also with Celeste Byers. This is in Tulum, Mexico, and this is based on a Mayan prophecy that after the colonization of Mexico, a lot of Mayans went underground, and they're waiting there, and that one day, when the time is right, they'll return to reclaim their kingdom. So this is based on that myth, and it's also a space. So there's a door in the back, you can go inside. It's very small, it's 10 by 10 foot, and it kind of, again, forces you to sit in a circle on the ground and kind of connect with people. So space and thinking about space three-dimensionally has become a big part of my process recently, and thinking about how important space is and how we interact, how we lead our day-to-day lives, et cetera, et cetera. And this thing is aging now. That photo was from 4 years ago, and it's already, the jungle's taking it back, which I really appreciate. Last thing I'll talk about here is my latest project, and probably biggest project to date. It's a collaboration with my friend Prescott McCarthy. We acquired a 1956 homesteader cabin out in the desert in Landers, which is near Joshua Tree. And the idea is that we're taking this cabin and we are renovating it, essentially completely stripping it and rebuilding it, using these concepts of repurposing, reusing. We're using a lot of found materials and also natural materials. We're looking at old ways of building things, natural ways of building things that are ecologically friendly. And then essentially, I mean, it's a work in progress. We're 3 months into this project. It's going to become an artist residency and creative space where we can invite artists out into the desert. They can kind of connect with the desert, create work, and kind of become this kind of little desert retreat incubator for creatives. Yeah, so that is about it. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. That's amazing. Your work is incredible. And it's so fun to see, it in all of the different ways that you've done it. It's also fun to see an artist's growth and progression into new space. I think that that's been really cool to see you do that, and also to just kind of get to experience that real time while you show that. So we really appreciate you sharing. It's amazing, and it's clear in your work how nature has impacted you, and how both for you and Iris, it's been a big part of who you are. It's the DNA and fabric of why you do what you do, why you create what you create as creative. So we really appreciate that. Well, we've got about 10, 15 minutes for a Q&A. And the way we've done Q&A for things like this, and since we've got two folks that spoke today, is you can either raise your hand. If you go over to the right-hand side of, actually at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to raise your hand if you have a question. Now, if that's not there, which we've had that happen before, another option for you is to ask your question in the chat. And in that way, we can read off those questions, and both Iris and Aaron can answer from there. While we're waiting for our first question, I was just going to say that that dome that you guys painted is insane. It's monstrous. I can't believe how large that that installation is, with all the different sides, and everything's just incredible. So love getting to see that. It's always fun talking with people that create it. So my question, actually, while we kick off, is you know, when you're building these art pieces, or especially something like that, we're doing these monster installations, how do you stay, because again, it's just an enormous labor of love. Like, it doesn't happen super quickly. How do you keep yourself engaged in the process? And maybe how do you, when you hit you know, a challenge, or there's something along the way that kind of a hiccup in the process, how do you keep yourself engaged and focused on your work at hand?
Oh man, that's a good question. There's like multiple ways. I think, to be completely honest, a lot of it comes down to deadlines and having, you know, like only a certain amount of time in a place, and a lift rental for a certain amount of time, and knowing that you have to get it done in this amount of time. But there's also, like, with these projects like that dome, there was 10 artists there. There was a whole support crew there, and generally speaking, artists, especially artists who have come up from kind of painting murals, are a specific kind of person. And we all know that it's like, we're there to paint, we're there to support each other. And you kind of get on these like creative highs as well. And you get to a point, especially in the mural painting, at first it's like, this is impossible. I don't know how this is going to happen in this short amount of time. But then you get to a point where you're like, oh, this is looking good. And once you kind of reach that point and you realize that it's feasible, then I have personally experienced this, and I've spoken to friends who experience it. You get like this inhuman energy supplies that just pushes you through and helps you create it. You know, it feels kind of divine at the time. It's like you can sleep for minimal hours, you can paint for 12 hours a day, and just kind of like push through. Yeah,
that's awesome. I think, Kelly, thanks for that answer. It's fun. I know those feelings when everyone's in the zone and there's energy. It's amazing what we're capable of accomplishing together. Mm-hmm. Kelly, you had a question for Iris.
I sure do, Nate. Hi again. Iris, I'm curious as a traveler, as a person who's constantly outdoors, how have you been coping, and what's been your saving grace for this current time where we are so often forced to stay inside?
It's gonna let me unmute myself this time. Great question. And as I prepared for this talk, I battle of what to share. And like, that was one of the things of just the shock of the pandemic. I just came back from the US from Costa Rica, spending a month there, running wild, footloose and fancy free, to being on lockdown in my studio apartment in LA. And I was like, oh my God. But what it really did, it became a blessing. It slowed me down and it deepened my connection. And I really got to tune into the small things and be really grateful for just being able. At first, they allowed us to go out on trails and like, yeah, I can go hiking, I can do it. And then they were like, too many people. You guys can only do parks. And so I just found myself sitting in parks and just really getting close and looking at the grass, and developed this amazing relationship with the woodpeckers that I would look for them every, day and see which trees they were on, and just really just a closer look to nature. And then I found myself bringing nature inside versus just plants that I had in my apartment, but like, oh, this is something curious. Let me bring it in and like, let me look closer and take a picture and research it. So doing that, and then just the understanding of how nature, how important it is to us, and how blessed for some people to be near nature. Right now I'm staying in Altadena, so I go hiking up in the mountains, and you look down the mountains and the neighborhood is full of trees and it's beautiful. But then I also stayed in Inglewood for a second with my friend, and I realized the dichotomy, and that he lives in a nature desert. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do you find a sense of home, and how do you find connection there? And then Mother Nature was like, look, chick, I got you. Like, I will be wherever you need me to be, whether it's a crack in the sidewalk or a hawk in the tree. And actually one day a hawk was just sitting and hanging out in the tree. So just slowing down and finding those and like really appreciating the little things about nature has helped me get through this pandemic. And insane.
Ask her question.
All right. Am I up next?
You are up.
Hi, Iris. This is Jordan. I've never met you before, but I heard on the grapevine that you are an actress. And I was just wondering if we could hear a rendition of Professor Curiosity's voice.
I love you putting me on the spot. Ahoy, Curiosos, and welcome to the Curiosity Corner with Professor Curiosity. Today, we will be talking about my wild adventures from Costa Rica. Are you ready? Let's get curious.
On the spot, going for it. I love it. Iris doesn't play games. She was ready. She was ready for that. We had another question in the chat for you, Iris. What have you found? Is there a particular climate that you prefer?
Yes, and it is not the South where I'm from. It is not Alabama in humidity. I love a cool mountain. And I don't know how to say that climate, but I love a nice crisp morning, mountain air, but not to the fact that I'm like freezing cold the whole day. Like, give me a nice crisp morning. And then afterwards, the sun can, like San Diego, like it stays around like that 70, 75. But I want to be in green, lush mountains with rivers. And, preferably without mosquitoes, but that's kind of hard when you put water and trees together.
You got a point there. It seems like those two things do in fact go together.
Yes.
We had a question for Aaron. Aaron, Jade asks, how do you typically start the collaborative process when you work with other artists?
Oh, it varies. Often it just kind of organically happens. Sometimes it's a matter of like sitting down with someone pre the project. I mean, that's often how it works. I've collaborated with a lot of people, and I've only had really one negative experience. For most of the time, it's been like an absolute breeze. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of happens organically. It's just a matter of finding the right people to work with. And I think maybe that's like some kind of intuitive feeling on my behalf and also on their behalf that we end up working together.
I love it. Well, I have a last question for both of you, which is, as we go into a new year and we wrap up 2020, which was a hell of a year for all of us, I'm just curious what you're most excited about as you prepare for another year of creating, another year of artistry in your own right. I'm just would love to hear, and I'm sure we'd all love to hear what you're excited about going into 2021.
Cool. After you, Iris, or?
I was gonna be like, Aaron, you want to go first? I'm excited about the development of this curious world that I'm creating with my alter ego, Professor Curiosity, and just the levels and the layers that just keep popping up. And I find her just like Mother Nature. She is a Pandora's box, and trying to understand that as developing the universe and what that will look like for her and storytellers and Scout Ants. And I am also looking forward to just connecting people to nature, just where they're at. And I did have a question for you all as kind of, I just wrap it up. How do you want to enjoy nature? How do you want to connect in your own personal way? Yeah. So those are the things I'm excited about, and learning how people connect in different ways. Seeing Aaron's connection is just breathtaking. Just like, this is absolutely gorgeous. And I could never imagine to do that, but that is his own connection. And just, yeah, so helping people find their connection in nature.
I love it. What about you, Aaron?
I have a few projects coming up that I'm really excited about. I'm yet to do a solo exhibit here in the US, so I've got 2 in 2021. If I can plug them, one is actually in San Diego. It's Swish Projects, opening on February 27th. Nice. And then I've got one in San Francisco, solo, maybe duo show in November. So that's going to swallow most of my year, I think. And then I'm actually working on a sculptural playground concept for a park in New Zealand. So hopefully that will happen too. So I think that's going to be me for the entire year.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that playground. I think that sounds like an incredible future for having a 2-year-old. I can tell you playgrounds are pretty lame, but even just seeing kids climbing on what you created in Hawaii, I'd love to see some more unique and inspired, creatively inspired playground. So I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. And with that, thank you both for your time today. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And you know, this theme is one that I love how you both interpreted it. I loved how you shared your journeys and how creativity it found you. It found you, and you've really. I love how the biophilia, becoming biophiliacs, as Iris said, has really just been something you've been drawn into. And both of your work and what you do is inspiring. And we thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And with that, we wrap up our 10th Zoom event of the year and our final Creative Mornings of 2020. And we're so thrilled with what's next. And just want to say thank you to everybody for the wild ride that has been the last 6 years for me personally. And I love you all, and I'm so grateful for what's taken place and transpired over the course of the last many years, and grateful for our team. None of this would happen without our incredible team of organizers that has worked tirelessly over the past many years and pivoted hardcore this year to make digital events a thing. And so we thank everybody, and big shout out to Tina, who also joined for this one, because without her, none of these communities would be what they are. And we're thankful for her and her heart for people around the world. So with that, hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. We will go out with a song, and we will see you all next year. Take care, everybody.